All right, let's welcome Beth to the podcast. Hey, Beth, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. I'm really excited for this topic. As you know, sustainability in vineyards is such an important discussion, so I'm glad you could be here. And in fact, you and I have a little bit of history working together. You might recall, it seems like 10 years ago now, back in 2013, I moved from Texas to California to the Central Coast. I left my extension role at Texas A&M and wanted to do more outreach and extension type work in California, but I really wanted to work with sustainability. And the Vineyard Team was a great opportunity for me, and I got a chance to work with you as there. At the time, you were the director of the certification program. You ran the certification program there for sustainability. Do you want to just give a little background on Vineyard Team and how Vineyard Team evolved and what the goals were? Or still are?
I would love to. So Vineyard Team has been around for coming up on 30 years. We are a nonprofit that promotes sustainable wine growing, and that comes in a few different packages. Education is a huge, huge component of what we do. So that could be in field tailgate meetings. We have a sustainable wine growing podcast. We have our sustainable ag expo. And what we do in those different programs is that we're bringing together experts and experienced growers to share education on pretty much every sustainable viticulture topic you could dream up, whether it's irrigation efficiency, dealing with different types of pests, and even into safety for crews. We also have our SIP certified program that you mentioned, which we'll be diving into more later. And then we also have a scholarship program called the Juan Navarez Memorial Scholarship. And that is a way for us to help children of vineyard and winery workers pay for a higher education.
So let's maybe explain a little bit about sustainability programs. What actually is sustainability in agriculture, and what is SIP?
So sustainability is about meeting today's needs and ensuring that the future can meet theirs as well. And with SIP certified, it's a third-party certification program. So we have a set of rules that are called the standards that cover all of those aspects of viticulture farming, from habitat conservation to soil quality, all the way to social equity issues and business sustainability. So it covers the whole gamut, and it's all third-party inspected. And so that's a way for a member of the program to go through this process to help them, potentially elevate some of their own sustainable practices and then have it all third-party verified so that it can have weight out in the marketplace.
Got it. And so for SIP certified, how did it come into being? What was the driving force? I know there's other sustainability programs. There's a statewide program in California. Oregon has their live program. The Finger Lakes created a program in New York. There seems to be a trend, or there was at one point, to try and get local programs. But why not just use one that's already? Why reinvent the wheel? I mean, your program is not just. We'll get into it. It's not just in California. You have certifications in other areas of the United States as well. How did SIP come into being on the Central Coast as a organization?
So SIP certified actually began back in 1996. The Vineyard Team wrote the first self-assessment for sustainable vineyard farming. And the whole point of this process was to have growers go through this checklist about their different practices and to see if that process of self-evaluation would improve their farming practices. So they would basically get a grade at the end of the day. And it was sort of a combination of, I think, wanting to get a better score and also learning, through that process of, answering yes or no. Am I doing this practice? Yes or no. And it would give people ideas about things that they could possibly implement in the next year. And so over a number of years of implementing, it was called the positive point system, we found that people's scores did increase over time. So they were learning and they were improving their sustainable practices as a result of that. So in the early 2000s is when we started seeing more, like eco type claims in the marketplace, everything from more certified organic to something being called just, natural. And our grower community came together and they said, if we're going to put sustainability on a bottle of wine and say that it's made with sustainable practices, we want a program with teeth to back that up with. So they took that original self-assessment and made sure that the standards were all specific and measurable. Something like you've had a distribution uniformity test, you have a winter cover crop, you have X amount of continuing education hours, so it could be audited. We also sent it through an external peer review with over 30 experts from the Environmental Protection Agency, DPR, different extensionists. That's still part of the process today. It's doing that every 5 years. And then we launched the Vineyard program in 2008. And because sustainability doesn't stop in the vines, we added a winery component too, so to address the processing facility in 2016. And then you can also certify a wine. So any wine made with at least 85 certified fruit, whether that's estate or purchased, can include that logo on the label after completing a chain of custody audit.
And there was some accountability, and your score reflected it. So everyone wants a good grade at the end of the year. But, did you take your plant tissue samples? Did you take your soil test? Did you, like you said, did you go and get your continuing education credits? And it just really gives that framework so more gets done, or in some cases, less gets done. Maybe we don't want to do some things, maybe less tillage or whatever it might be in the vineyard. So I always thought that was a great component of the program. Kind of that, I guess, accountability is a good word to use, right?
Yeah, I think accountability, and it creates that consistency too, because it's an annual certification. So somebody is going back every year and looking at these standards. And I've heard a lot of our members say that that's been really valuable to them. Because like you said, the intentions are there, the intentions are good. It's very similar to fitness. Like we want to exercise, but sometimes having accountability is what makes that actually happen. And that was part of what we see in Beth's is people show up every week because there's a time and a place to do it.
Yeah, it's like hiring a personal trainer versus getting a gym membership, right? I mean, you're going to see that trainer. You're not going to skip out on your workouts, right? You're going to
totally.
Yeah.
Another benefit too, I think, is that, because we are working with a technical committee to update those standards every year and also doing that external peer review every 5 years, we are aggregating that latest science and research into this document that's living. It's always evolving and changing. And so even that just takes a lot of time off of a farmer's hands because we're taking care of that for them.
Can you go into some more detail on the overall impact and importance of a sustainability program for a vineyard or a winery? So, for example, how does a sustainability certification program change a grower's mindset? So, is as opposed to someone who's not in one of these programs.
I think when someone comes to us to get SIP certified, they've already made the decision to be sustainable. And a lot of times they're already implementing a lot of really good, practices that are healthy for the people and the planet themselves. And they're looking to take that extra step. And that can have a variety, of different benefits for them. The consistency and management that we talked about earlier, I think is really huge. Access to the current best practices is big. A lot of people like our program because we do set a high bar for certification. So we are trying to make it, rigorous, not something that necessarily every property could get certified in as well. We are also have worked with our local regional water quality control board to provide regulatory relief. And that's varied, kind of as those different ag orders change every so many years. But that's a big incentive too for somebody who's already doing the work and not having to duplicate their efforts in terms of reporting.
Yeah, no, that sounds huge, especially in California. But we always think about, deliverables and measurables. And, in my career in education, you always want to, come back and say, okay, what was the impact and how do we measure it? So how do you find, or what have been your discoveries in terms of measurable results for growers from being in a program as opposed to just making it up on their own, for example?
Mm-hmm. I think it really all goes back to that, consistency aspect. Most of the growers that we work with that have been certified in the program, their main reason for doing it is they say it's the right thing to do. So they are farming for the long term and want to take care with that. And so this allows them to, do the best job to preserve their land.